All right, now she was never a celebrity. Nobody knew her before her child went missing and then was found dead, right? Yet all these people, trial of this century. So let me throw this out to my think tank tonight. Can we all agree now, finally, after this case and others, that you get a fair trial in this country? She was voted the most hated woman in America, yet when push came to shove, and the evidence was presented, they were able to say not guilty and send her home. Can we agree? Yes or no?
Generally, yes.
Generally.
We hope so.
Yeah, we hope so.
Each person's case is incredibly different.
Yes.
The jurors, what they're charged with, where they're sitting, all that's incredibly different.
So this is a big picture question. Can anyone get a fair trial in this country? And is that one of the lessons of the Casey Anthony verdict?
Yes is the answer to that question in a macro sense, but in a micro sense, the answer is no. So it's half in one hand, half in another.
And what's the argument that people don't get a fair shake? If she got a fair shake, why wouldn't anyone else get a fair shake?
Because now with the advent of social media and all of the coverage that this stuff gets now, like you don't really have impartial jurors coming in if it's something that big. Like if Casey Anthony were going to trial right now, the circus that was down there that you were a part of then has magnified since that has happened.
Well, I don't know if it could have magnified. It was insane down there because of and it all started because there was an incredible search for a missing little girl, and everyone was invested in this case. What are your thoughts?
Well, so I've had, on the micro level, again, an experience where I don't think people get fair trials. I think sometimes you have juries that are led by individuals who have motives other than to apply the facts to the law. I think the Casey Anthony case is like a red herring. This is usually not how things go. I do think that her being a white female obviously plays into there's a sympathy card that I think gets played by white females.
Can I play devil's advocate to your red herring?
Yes.
If you don't mind. O.J. Simpson, the exact opposite of what you just described, Casey Anthony, also found not guilty. High-profile case. A lot of people thought he did it too.
I will say the lesson is not so much whether you get a fair trial or not. The lesson for all of us attorneys really is how important it is to pick a jury. I mean, this was about the jury. And at the end of the day, those are the people that decide that person's fate.
And that makes my point, doesn't it? Exactly, that ultimately it's up to a jury inside a courtroom. Whatever's happening outside the courthouse, whether there's cameras in the courtroom, protesters outside, people marching, you get a fair trial.
Also, what's interesting is I do think that extra media attention, especially on behalf of the victim going after the defendant, almost puts, I think the jurors, as they're walking in and out of the courthouse, must feel somewhat attacked by them. And I think that there's also a desire, if everyone else is attacking this person, we feel the need to protect them.
Well, if you think about it, a lot of times the defense attorneys will want to get the venue moved because they think there's too much publicity, and so it can,
But a case like this, they got jurors from a different venue and brought them in, but at the end of the day, no matter where you put the Casey Anthony trial, it was going to be huge. It didn't matter where, it was a national story. Now, there was another part of this jury that I wanted to talk about, and three cases I want to put up there. The O.J. Simpson case, right? You remember that one? Mm-hmm. He was found not guilty. Casey Anthony trial and the George Zimmerman trial, all three of those, right? All not guilty verdicts. They also had one other thing in common. Do you know what it was?
What?
Jury was sequestered in every one of those cases. The jury was sequestered for Casey Anthony, for O.J. Simpson, and for George Zimmerman. So let me throw this out at you. What happens to a sequestered jury? Does it change the dynamic? Why do they come back not guilty? Is there a difference?
Well, I can tell you, I think there's a certain bonding that you get. It's almost kind of like they used to say a posse comitatus bond when people have been through something together. Like when you're in there for days and weeks at the time and all of a sudden, everybody starts moving in a certain direction, then you're like more likely to move in that certain direction because you don't have outside influences pulling you back to where you might have been.
Yeah, that's.
But why does it pull them towards not guilty and not pulling them towards guilty?
It's funny. I have actually been on a jury and
sequestered.
Not sequestered, but I will tell you, to your point, it's a lot of pressure when you're back there. And then can you imagine even being sequestered? I mean, there's more bonding, and there is more of that. But then again, back to the sequestration issue, or the sequestering issue, how many of them are guilty versus not guilty? I mean, these may just be a coincidence. I don't know that there's any pattern to that.
All right, well, these were three big ones, like super high profile, and those are the cases, obviously, that get sequestration.
I also wanted to say to you, because you were saying that the jury said that she had nothing to do with it. That's not what the jury said. I wanted to correct you. The jury said that the state didn't have proof beyond a reasonable doubt that she
Right.
did it. So I think in some of these cases, these jurors, who I probably face a lot of ridicule after they reach their verdict, whether I agree with it or not, I commend them on actually doing something that's very, very difficult, which is in the face of all of the media attention that they know is building outside, even if they're not, actually looking at their phones or going home to it. They're being brave enough to make.
Which is
to
my
make a
point,
decision.
right?
Wow.
So can we, from this point forward, just send out a directive to all criminal defense attorneys from coast to coast who say, Your Honor, my trial, whether they're talking to the media or they're talking to the court, my client can't get a fair trial, ladies and gentlemen, because of all the publicity surrounding this. Not guilty, not guilty, not guilty.
Well, but I think also you got to look at, you had some major moments in these trials that swung people. Like, everybody remembers OJ and the glove, right?
Right.
And everybody remembers Mark Fuhrman and his testimony, right? Everybody, and that's more than 10 years ago. That's 20, well, no, that's almost 30 years ago now.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, like, those were moments that were such attention grabbers. Like, that's what shot through the prosecution's defense. Like, when you think about, George Zimmerman and his trial, like, there was a moment there when you were like, he should have been found guilty, but when you look at the jury charges allow differently than they do for, the jury charges allowed differently than they should have been allowed for the stand your ground defense, right? But that's a Florida issue. And so when you're thinking about this, it's like, there are some similarities, but there are some grave differences when you look at it on a micro level as opposed to a macro level.
All right, we're going to talk more about this. Think Tank is fired up tonight. We're going to talk more about the Casey Anthony case and how it really impacts the big picture, because it's been 8 years since that jury set her free.